United States launched strikes on dozens of targets in Iran in retaliation to attacks on U.S. forces in the Middle East earlier this week. Iran's Republican Guard said that it will, in its words, punish the aggressor today and that it remains in full control of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, for the latest on the Iran war, what we can anticipate with oil prices as well, we want to bring in Amos Hochstein. He is TWG Global Managing Partner. He, of course, served as White House senior advisor in the Biden administration. And Amos, thanks for being here.
It's good to be with you.
So what we were told initially would be 4 to 6 weeks of an incursion has turned into 6 months plus for this war. And it's dragging on. It does not look like there's an end in sight right now.
There's no end right now. In fact, I think we're at the precipice of making a decision. The president is trying to make a decision. Should he go all in or not? So, look, this was never going to be 4 to 6 weeks because Iran is a very large country. It's 90 million people, has multiple borders, much more complicated than Iraq. In Iraq, we had, hundreds of thousands of troops on the ground. It was an international coalition. We prepared for it for 8 months. So this was never going to be that fast. Iran is a tough nut to crack, and to do it with an air campaign alone was a little bit of wishful thinking to think you could just air bomb and then they'll just collapse. So now where we are today is there's two problems that the president has. One, I think he feels a little bit caged in, with walls and not having a door. He's looking for this out. The MOU was supposed to be that out, but it was hurried. And Article 5 of it says Iran will manage or make arrangements to reopen the strait. They read that as we're in control. The U.S. read that as you're not in control. And so you had a disagreement there. Now he is faced with this. Basically, his military leaders are saying, what we're doing with these nightly strikes has diminishing returns. There's a certain point where it's not working anymore. It doesn't do very much. And in fact, Iran is now attacking us in pretty harsh strikes in Jordan and in other places. So now he has to say, do I go all in, meaning scorched earth, a much bigger campaign against civilian infrastructure? That will not take 10 days or 2 weeks. It will take 4 or 5 weeks. And nobody knows what's on the other side of it. In the meantime, the economy of the United States and the world will be heavily damaged. So he's got to make that decision. And lastly, for the first time, the Russia-Ukraine front and the Iranian front are coalescing in the worst way for the economy. The Ukrainian attacks against Russian energy infrastructure have now taken the toll. Russia is an 11% share of diesel exports. It's now at an export ban, so they're at zero. 2 refineries went out yesterday with Ukrainian attacks. And our own refineries, at some point, something's going to happen. We're running at near 100% for months with no maintenance. Yeah, 96, 97, right. With no maintenance. And the SPR is lower. Sorry, Joe. And the tanks,
lower than where you guys got it, which is bad enough.
the tanks are lower than the commercial stock. So the tools that were there in March and April and May are diminishing.
Energy Secretary Chris Wright was speaking yesterday, and he said that there's 13 million barrels a day coming out of the Middle East, either through the Strait being helped through by U.S. troops to get that through, or through pipelines that take it out through other directions. He said that's 2/3 of what we were getting before the war started. That doesn't sound nearly as dire as a lot of people had anticipated it might be.
So one, I think there's a lot of different views on what that number is, and I think 13 million may be on the higher end of that. Second, look, if we came here during peacetime and just said, we're going to take 1/3 of the supply off from the Middle East, people would go crazy. So one, 1/3 is a lot, especially when the refined products is also a big problem because of the Middle East also produces a lot of refined products. The 13 million, I don't know how he's counting, but you have to look at crude, and then you have to look at the refined products that is also what the Middle East produces. So if we don't have a solution in sight, the market is now pricing oil not based on where we think we're going, but where we are right now. There's an announcement of talks, boom, oil prices go down. There's an announcement of strikes, boom, oil prices go up. Right. That's a silly way to trade. I don't understand what the
futures are silly too, because no one can predict the futures.
Well, the futures I ignore. During war, you can't look at futures.
Right.
Normal time, you could look at futures because they can be based on investments and so on. Right now, the futures is junk. But in this moment, they have to look at, if you don't think this war is ending in the next 2 to 4 weeks, there's a slowing down of the SPR releases. We're already seeing that because it's a little harder to get it out. what does this market look like in 4 weeks of the current state of affairs? And I can tell you the gulf between oil industry, really the people that are actually doing it, CEOs of the big companies versus traders, is huge. They believe that we're in rocky waters here.
So if you were advising this White House, what would you tell them?
I would tell the president today to worry about the energy prices in not today, but in 4 weeks from now, which I think they'll be very, very challenging. And I would say try to create alliances out of this. We have an opportunity here. The Iranians overplayed their hand in the last several days. They struck Egypt. They're striking Jordan. This is the time to go to the Europeans and say, look, guys, I know you're upset that I didn't call you in advance and I kind of, was belligerent a little bit.
And we pay for all your defense.
But don't even say that. We just say now, like, look, guys, the Iranians are not accepting a deal. I want a deal. We need to do this together. Let's coalition this instead of going this alone with Israel.
So Netanyahu has said this war can't end until really there's regime change and until we just take care of this once and for all in terms of nuclear material and all that thing. As a pro-Israel Democrat, not quite an oxymoron, close these days, but as a pro-Israel Democrat, do you wish, is there a part of you that is in that camp, that we've come this far, maybe it's time?
Look, every American should hope and wish that there's a regime change in Iran. Us bringing it about and causing it, I don't think is plausible. And therefore, that's not in our national security interest to do it right now. Okay. Because of what that would cost.
But you wouldn't mind if that finally happened?
Nobody should. These people are, first of all, they have more American blood on their hands than any other regime.
They want to wipe Israel off the map.
They want to wipe. They say they want to wipe us off the map. And I take people at their word when they say they want to wipe the United States off the map. They're killing Americans. That's why I think that I wish they were gone. But I can't wish my foreign policy.
Do we have different interests in the United States than Israel? Is Netanyahu overplaying his hand in terms of what we
definitely have different interests and different threats. We also have some mutual interests.
Right.
Israel's facing an election, a pretty historic election, October 27, a week before our elections, the midterm elections in the United States. I think a lot will be determined by that. But I think no matter who comes in is going to have a strong view on Iran. The consensus in the Israeli military and intelligence circles is that the regime change option is off the table. That was probably a step too far from the beginning, and therefore we should focus on the nuclear sites. I think we've done a lot of damage there. This is a moment where, for the United States national security interest, which really matters to me, we need to get some kind of deal back into some kind of deal with Iran. Together with our Gulf allies?
I understand the need for a deal. What would we be willing to take for that deal? Will we have to say that the Strait of Hormuz is open and Iran has no control over that? Would we have to say, are you taking nuclear ambitions off the table, saying that we're not going to deal with that issue at this point? If we need a deal, what has to be in that deal?
What has to be in the deal, one is nuclear, for sure. We've caused enormous amount of damage to the nuclear industry, what President Trump did last June, which was a tight, very careful 12-day war, which, by the way, Iran didn't even retaliate during or after that war because it only focused on the nuclear. And I think we have to get the Strait of Hormuz to function. Will it function exactly the same way they did before the war? I think that's probably wishful thinking. We have to work.
So we would allow them to set up some sort of a toll?
No, I don't think control only means money. Control, after all...
Ask permission before any...
So I think the Gulf states are already talking among themselves, how do we create some kind of mechanism where everybody is involved in, similar to the Strait of Malacca, where everybody in the region is involved. You're going to have to concede something because, look, we went to war, we did not get our objectives. And when you don't win in a war, there are consequences to that. And we're going to have to own up to the fact that the United States did not succeed in its objectives, and therefore there are going to be some consequences. But we got to get back to a normalized thing where we are able to replenish our own military, secure our troops, not just in the Middle East, but focus on other areas of the world, and to get our economy back in place where we don't have this war as a drag on what could have been a successful economy right now.
The economy is pretty successful. Inflation's a little higher, though, too.
So the economy is successful in the sense that the market is successful. But inflation, as you said, that's what people are feeling. If you look out there, what's going on in the country ahead of the midterms, these midterms wouldn't look like this, and the president's numbers wouldn't look this way if beef was not at $7 a pound, if gasoline wasn't at $4.10 and potentially rising. That's the part that I'm referring to when I say the economy's challenged.